Today's theme is all about Iowa, who's going to win, and we also try to predict how many states each candidate will get, who win the overall nominations, who they're going to pick as a running mate, and who win the whole enchilada. This is all about predictions, and we're also talking about why the media treats this as a horse race. Okay, join us after the intro.
I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long. I've been looking for freedom. Still the search goes on. Oh, freedom. I've been looking so long. I've been looking for freedom. Still it can't be found.
Hello, friends. This is the fifth podcast in a year-long conversation between Alabama Liberal and Blue in Alabama's, and I'll be introducing them in just a minute. But we got an exciting one today. This is going to be good. So go ahead, sit down, snuggle in, because we're going to be talking all about Iowa, really all about the race. We're going to make a prediction of who will win Iowa, how many states each candidate's going to get, who's going to win the nomination, really all of it, who we think will drop out after Iowa. We're going to kind of get to the horse race aspect, and then be hypocrites and basically criticize the horse race aspect because the media, all they're doing is covering that and not so much the ideas or anything beneath it. So let's get started. All right. How's it going, Michael?
Hola, Hispanic for Donald Trump.
You know, the crazy thing, there probably are Hispanics for Donald Trump. I mean, they said that 30% of the vote Republican, and you got to wonder what they could do to lose that extra 30%. Like, what else they could do to lose it? You got to wonder, who is that?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's those few Hispanic people who are looking for a free ride back home to visit grandmother.
Yeah, they're homesick, or I bet they're home. Or maybe it's like the guy who's like, he hates his mother-in-law. He's like, God, that old bitch. I'm gonna vote for Donald. You know, there's just a guy who doesn't like his cousins or something. He's like, I'm sick of. I mean, we all know people who probably have thought about calling INS on a relative that they didn't like or something. So yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe that's where Trump's getting his votes from. But also an update out there for people. You said you were wanting to see what all the hullabaloo with Jeb Bush and that Apple Watch was about. So you're our product tester. What is the Apple Watch? I mean, I don't have one. I barely use I'm not up to date on technology. I pretty much use a sundial to tell time and pull out a flip phone when I use it. Like I got a rotary phone. You tell us about the Apple Watch.
Well, let me tell you, it's the greatest thing ever invented in the history of mankind.
Does it talk? Because Jeb seemed confused about that aspect, and I assume it talks.
The phone itself doesn't talk, but you can make calls and answer calls from it. In essence, it doesn't talk, but it lets other people talk through it. I guess it's kind of like a politician.
What? And you were saying something about monitors everything.
Oh, absolutely, yes. It you have to stand up. It monitors how long you're standing in a day. If you know how much exercise you're getting, how much movement you're doing. Every hour, it requires you to stand like 12 hours a day. For, at least stand up for 60 seconds so you're getting some type of exercise. And if you don't stand, it'll literally start vibrating and you'll look down and it'll be like, time to stand, like stand up for 60 seconds. And you can just hit okay and kind of ignore it. But if you ignore it, literally 2 seconds later, it's going to vibrate again and be like, come on, stand up. And then you finally stand up.
That's like a second wife.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a hole in my head. I mean, it sounds like.
Exactly.
And you know that eventually they're going to make a watch. It's kind of like when they updated this, it's the Apple Watch 3, the Apple Watch 4. They're going to make one that's kind of bitter. Like it's going to be like, well, it's going to be like, you didn't even appreciate that I told you to stand up a minute ago. Or it's going to be like, you'll come home and it'll be like, you didn't make enough money today. You know, so like it's pushing you.
You haven't bought me a new case lately.
Employers are going to use systems that basically say you spent this much time on the bathroom, you're fired. You take too many shits or something like it's going to monitor every. I mean, this is just further and further down that. What people, I guess, that used to like Ron Paul, what they're afraid of is that they'll just be this constant monitoring of your every move, and then what I guess people, I'm less afraid of it in terms of the government as I am about businesses and businesses that listen to calls, or even businesses that measure your productivity at work, and they're like because if they came up with a system that measured how much you sit down, and most of us how much we sleep at our jobs, we'd be out of there. So we're only a couple hours away from another yet another Republican debate. This one's going to be on Fox News, of course. I guess they're afraid to go anywhere else. Pretty much won't let anybody else talk to them.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, the last one was on Fox Business, this one's on Fox News. I mean, the last one they had was on CNBC that wasn't through the Fox networks. And it was so criticized. The president of the RNC, he canceled a debate that was going to be on, it was going to be one on NBC in, like, I believe, late February. And you move that from NBC to CNN. But are these really what we think of as debates? The candidates tell us how long they're going to last. They tell the moderators what to ask them. They set all the terms. And then if they don't like the questions from the moderators, they change networks. I mean, is this really what we think of as a debate? I mean, it seems...
I mean, if you're a Republican, yes. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, really, it's like if, it says something that you don't like, you're going to take your ball and you're going to go home. I'm not going to come back to your show anymore. How dare you ask a potential presidential candidate a tough question? Like, it's unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, like they asked Ben Carson, so you stabbed a guy? That's over the line. That's a gotcha question. I don't want to be asking about my potential murdering spree. That's like, I think that you're right that they're so protected, and it's getting worse every single cycle. I mean, Mitt Romney would barely do interviews. The last presidential election, he would just barely do interviews that weren't from Fox News or weren't from family sources.
Yeah.
And I kind of contrast that with Obama. He's gone everywhere. And as we've seen with this hilarious, Bill Maher's trying to get him on his show. He's made this hilarious petition on lighthouse.org, like basically asking Obama to come on because he's been to every other goddamn show in the known universe. They only need 100,000 signatures to get beyond it as of the time that we're talking about this. The last time I checked it, they had over 2,000, so they could get to 500,000. They could get to 1 million. So I don't know, but as he was going through, he goes, Obama, he's been on Comedians with Cars Getting Coffee. He's been getting coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. He's been on Between Two Ferns. He's been on YouTube channels. He's been in Mark Maron's garage. He's even sat down with Bill O'Reilly. And these candidates this time, they're not going anywhere. I've seen Trump on a few late night shows. I've not seen Rubio on any. Ted Cruz, he went on Stephen Colbert and regretted it. Made him look bad. But it's like, I don't know, they seem to be getting more and more protectionist over there. And I just wonder if a president can really function that way, where they won't go anywhere but Fox News.
It's crazy. That just goes to show how power Fox News actually does have. Like, for them to be such
it's basically an arm of the Republican Party.
Yeah, it really is. For them to be such a anti-mainstream media news outlet.
Yeah.
When half of the voting population watches your news station, you're part of the mainstream.
Yeah, what's they've kind of got a great setup because they present a problem, which is that any other news is corrupted news, and it's got a liberal bias, and it's not trustworthy, and you can't trust it, and only Fox is the place to be. But they present a problem, and then they present the cure. Watch us, only us. So they kind of set up. I mean, it's almost like advertising. I mean, it is advertising. You create a problem, which is that you're a loser, and then you create the cure. You drink more Dr. Pepper, and they've created that classic problem of like any other news media is corrupted, so you got to watch us only. Right. And we'll see what happens at tonight's debate, but I guess we'll get into the main meat because there's so much meat. So people at home listening or whatever, get comfortable, take off your pants, relax. It's about as exciting as politics as we ever get, really. I mean, you got to think the presidential race, people that are bored with politics, even they might follow it a little bit.
A little bit.
And we're going to get into tonight's debate, any predictions of if that'll affect Iowa or is this going to be the moment where Ted Cruz finally cries? I mean, this seems to be, if he were ever going to, this would be maybe have like a bald eagle on his shoulder eating an apple pie and have a veteran behind him or something crying about how good America is.
I mean, he better. He better. I mean, he better do something because the Trump train is not slowing down. Pretty much he's tied to the tracks right now, so... I mean, he better do something to find a way to escape, or else he's gonna.
In the last podcast, we talked a little bit about he had a bad week. Sarah Palin endorsed Trump, which is kind of funny how she endorsed Trump, and they asked Trump if he would consider her as his running mate, and he had to walk a tightrope of being like, "There's no way in hell she'd be my running mate," and also, but I'm really glad to get her endorsement.
Yeah.
And you're not dumb enough to make the John McCain mistake that he already made. I mean, and I think we saw he got that endorsement, and then he got an anti-endorsement. The Republican governor of Iowa said anybody but him.
Yeah.
And we've seen stories come out about he didn't report a loan from Goldman Sachs, and his wife had a nervous breakdown all these years ago, and all these. And I mean, it really seems like we're going to come out with some little girl said Ted Cruz stomped my puppy to death or something. But I mean, he seems like he's a worse and worse guy every single day in the media.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. Like I can't wait to see that. Yeah, he stomped my puppy, or he, got my cat stuck in a tree. I mean, like there's going to be some like outlandish story, and Trump's going to be like, "That's why you can't vote for him. Him and his New York values."
Yeah, you'll have some old lady being like, "When Ted Cruz was a Boy Scout, I asked him to walk me across the street, and he pushed me in front of a bus," and it'll just be worse and worse. We have to think about Iowa and the primary in general, and we have to think if this keeps going on. I mean, right now he's ahead in a few states. If not ahead, then he's a strong number 2, and we have to wonder. I mean, if he doesn't get Iowa, is it up over for him?
Possibly.
Right now, him and Trump, they're neck and neck. And I mean, some polls, they go back and forth or whatever. I mean, you can never trust polls. And the thing about Iowa is the winner of Iowa really the loser, because I have to go back and talk a little bit about history right now. With 4 years ago, Rick Santorum won Iowa. And of course, he got nowhere. Then 8 years ago, Mike Huckabee won Iowa. Of course, he got nowhere. Back when Mike Huckabee won Iowa, John McCain was 4, so he wasn't even in the top 3, and he still won the nomination. So when you look back at Iowa, in terms of the Republican side, it's a pretty lousy predictor of who's going to win the overall nomination. And if we go by that trend, whoever wins Iowa, are they really the loser and are probably not going to win the nomination?
And a lot of that has to do. I mean, look at the guys that you just mentioned, and it tells you kind of. I mean, really, it tells you the voter base that turns out for a caucus in Iowa. So a lot of white, religious conservatives that would support a guy like Santorum or a guy like Huckabee. And you have to really look at
what a huge difference it is between the Democrats and Republicans. Like, they've shown the Democratic Iowa caucus, and they look like some of them farmers, some of them church people or whatever, but they're wearing shirts with collars, buttons. I mean, it's like they're wearing. And then that's the Republican side, and it's the dynasty. I mean, it's real different. And some of them bring their guns to the fucking. I mean, I'm just like, Jesus, man. I mean, they care. Like Huckabee wrote the book totally pandering to them: God, guns, grits, and gravy. And they seem to. Why can't I bring my assault rifle to a Chipotle? What's wrong? We're like, what's wrong with that? So I think that it's
still waiting to get my copy of that, by the way.
With the Democrat side, it's a little bit better indicator because obviously 8 years ago, Obama, he upset Hillary. People thought he kind of came out of nowhere to win Iowa, really upset her. She placed 3rd because John Edwards got 2nd before he disappeared forever. I think about a week after Iowa, he's like, well, goodbye, the world, and then disappeared. So Obama won that as a surprise. Back in 2004, Howard Dean was ahead in a lot of the polls, and John Kerry won Iowa back in 2004. So that was the surprise that he beat Howard Dean back. Another one, right? And and then even the last time a Democrat lost Iowa, but eventually won the nomination, was actually back in '92 when Bill Clinton. That was kind of extraordinary circumstances or whatever. I believe person who won Iowa that year, he was from Iowa, so it was kind of a different thing. But I think Iowa for the Democrats, it is a better indicator. So the fact that Hillary and Bernie, they're going back and forth, 2 points here, 2 points there, whatever, I can see why they're in such a dogfight because, I mean, literally the last time a Democrat lost and got the nomination was 1992. So Hillary, I think she's thinking, I've got to win this. I don't want Bernie to Obama me. I don't want him to come in, and there's no reason I should lose to this guy or whatever. And I can see why they're in a closer fight.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
The interesting thing is that when you go to New Hampshire, there's actually a lot better indicator because there's not a single Republican that has come in worse than 2nd in New Hampshire that won the nomination. So they either win New Hampshire or they're the runner-up. Let's say Rubio comes in 3rd, and then he eventually got the nomination. It'd be the first time in history. And same thing for South Carolina. They either win South Carolina or they come in 2nd. So we can almost say with New Hampshire and South Carolina, I think we'll still have a shitload of candidates probably, even after those states. We'll probably still have at least 5. But you have to look at those states and say, if you came in worse than 2nd in either of those states, and especially if you came in 3rd or worse in both of those states, historically it'd be the first time in history that you won the nomination. So you have to wonder if whoever comes in worse than 3rd or worse in those states, if they'll smell the coffee.
I think a lot of them will. I would say about half the field drops out. I think after New Hampshire, I think about Hatfield drops out. After South Carolina, a few others. I think somebody like Rand Paul is gonna. I mean, if he's anything like his dad, he's gonna stick with it until probably. You won't see him concede until January 20th when the new president's taking those of office. He's like, well, I guess I'm not gonna make it.
Then he'll protest.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna be there protesting.
He'll have his own inauguration at like somewhere across town or something like that. There'll be like lots of feminists to show up. We were fans of your father. We're here for you. And they'll come out. He'll have like a day at the Days Inn banquet room. It'll be like, Rand, you're king of the United States. Put a crown on his head and make up some shitty Burger King crown. Put it on him. But like kind of recurring thing we'll have in this podcast is Dropout Watch. Now we haven't had much need to use it because we knew most of the candidates they were going to be hanging in there until Iowa. And I guess once they were like, I thought I would get half of 1%, but I only got 1/4%. And you got to wonder right now in the Republican field, there's still technically 12 people running. I say 12 because Jim Gilmore, we're going to assume he's still alive. I think we have to get confirmation that he's not dead somewhere. So we have to, somebody's got to find Jim Gilmore to find out if he's still running. But if he's still there, former governor of Virginia, still there for some reason, if we still have 12 after Iowa, how many do you think drop out and who do you think they are?
After Iowa, I feel like probably somebody like Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, if they just do absolutely poorly in Iowa where they had won previously, I can't see them staying in it. Huckabee may stay until South Carolina, thinking since it's a southern state, he may be able to perform a little bit better. But when you got Rubio and Bush and all these other guys also from the South, I mean, that's going to cut into some of his voting bloc as well in South Carolina. I just don't see either of them sticking it out. Cruz, I think he's going to stay.
Oh, yeah.
It just depends. I mean, what if he just absolutely tanks in Iowa? He may not be able to leave there from just crying. He may finally, if he doesn't have that crowd tonight after he loses in Iowa, he may just have an emotional breakdown.
It just becomes like a Iowa State Fair worker or something. Like you see him repairing the machines at the Iowa State Fair. He's fixing the corn dog. Apparently, I mean, I guess Iowa, all they do is have a state fair because I've never heard of another damn thing within that state. And their state fair seems to go on for about 3 months, and they're always scarfing down corn dogs. I don't know.
The other one I was going to say was maybe Carly Fiorina. And I'm kind of on the fence with her. I think she'll stay in just so she can bash Hillary some more, but at the same time, that's not the point. Like, why are you here?
Right. Right. Like, if I had to put in some predictions, I think Santorum and Huckabee and Jim Gilmore, they make the most sense to drop out. But as we've seen over and over, Republican candidates, they don't follow logic that well. And so they may not drop out for that reason. But I think with Huckabee, he's trying to build a media platform. And I don't think he's really running president so much as like, I mean, he ran in 2008 and he refused to drop out. So it went almost all the way to the convention with John McCain before he finally dropped out. I mean, there's no way in hell he could have won, and he still stayed in there another 2 months. And of course, after that, he got a show on Fox News. He had a syndicated radio show. He's written books in that time period. So I think he's probably thinking, I don't think he's there to win. I think he knows he's going to lose. He's going to have a shot in hell. But he's trying to build this media platform so that if he thinks, well, if I can stay in there and say the craziest shit possible and the most Christian stuff possible, then I can basically I can get another media contract after I get out or whatever. Because he gave up a gig hosting a Fox News show to run for president. And it was interesting, too, because they asked him, they go, you're probably the most religious person in this race. Why are Ted Cruz and Trump and all these people that maybe are not quite as religious as you, why are they getting the Iowa evangelical vote? And he goes, because they're not true believers. Basically, it was like, he was basically saying that he is more religious, and if he got elected, he would do what he said he was going to do. Once they get rid of abortion and gay marriage and stuff like that, then these churches wouldn't have anything to raise money on. And he goes, so they want to keep these issues going so they can raise money. I thought, that's a pretty next level narcissism. Like, that's some pretty elaborate egomania, basically think that you're holier than any other candidate. I mean, I don't know. It felt kind of egomaniacal, but at the same time. So I look at that and I look at Santorum. He flat out lost to Romney 4 years ago and he would not jump out of the race. So I think they should drop out. I don't know if they will. With Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina, they're both there mostly as token candidates. Ben Carson has no intention of winning this nomination. He knows he's not going to win. He doesn't want to win this nomination. And I mean, like, when he was ahead in the polls, he was like 3 weeks towards the end of the year, he was ahead in the polls. He was like, oh my God. And then he backed down. During the debates, he practically sleeps. I mean, we're going to see him bring out a chair and put his feet up on the podium and fall asleep maybe in one of these debates. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Carson, if he does worse than, let's say, fourth, let's say if he's fifth or worse, I wouldn't be totally surprised to see him drop out. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Fiorina drop out. And I think that if they stay in, I think Ben Carson particularly, because the usefulness of not looking racist against Obama is pretty much depleted. I think Republicans don't care as much about that anymore. So I think his usefulness really goes away after Iowa. Fiorina, she's going to stay a little bit more relevant because Hillary, right now Democrats have got an all-white field. So they don't need to look with Ben Carson as when they can say, well, he was there. He participated in the participation medal. With Fiorina, Hillary's going to obviously, if by some chance doesn't win the nomination, her and Bernie will at least go back and forth for 3 months. Fiorina's usefulness may be a little bit longer, so it wouldn't surprise me to see Ben Carson drop out, and it wouldn't surprise me to see probably everybody else stay in. I think Santorum and Huckabee are building media platforms. Santorum, he may very well drop out because if he doesn't even get right now he's polling at about 1%. I haven't seen a single poll that put him higher at 1% in Iowa. A lot of the nationwide polls, he's at a flat 0. So he'd have to be saying, those polls could have they could have a margin of error of 100%. I mean, he'd have to say they've got to have a margin of error of about 25% for him to. So he should drop out, but I don't know if he will. Elections have become a big business in a lot of ways, so that's what's behind a lot of these candidates staying in there. So Jim Gilmore and Huckabee and Santorum should. I don't know if they will. Fiorina and Carson may very well, but I think Christie and Kasich, who will probably do pretty poorly in Iowa, I think they're gonna wait till at least New Hampshire and see what's up. But I wouldn't be totally surprised out of the big establishment candidates. I wouldn't be surprised if Christie was the first one to drop out. I think Jeb Bush, he's got a nationwide campaign, and he's hoping against hope that things turn around. Rubio and Cruz, they're going to stay hot on the heels of Donald, and even John Kasich. The man's clearly running for vice president, but he's the only one who doesn't know it. Everybody let him know. And at the last debate, they asked him, they said, everybody's saying you'd be a great vice presidential candidate. He goes, shut up. I mean, he just keeps saying, well, that's why I should be president. And they go, yeah, but if you weren't, I'm running for president. He almost was screaming at it. You got Pennsylvania and Ohio right around the country. That's Kasich country, And I'm like, those states they don't even come into play until April. And so he just seems to be in it for the long haul. And right now, he's actually doing not bad in New Hampshire, I believe. I think we'll see most everybody stay in until at least South Carolina, which is only really probably going to help Trump, because if the establishment is split 5 different ways between Christie, Bush, Kasich, Rubio, and Cruz, they're splitting it off so that Trump, and I dare to dream, anything can happen. But do you think Trump's going to win Iowa? Right now, unless he does something stupid at tonight's debate, which is very possible, it's Donald Trump. Tomorrow he could come out and moon a reporter or something, and it cost him the whole thing. Who knows what the fuck he's going to do? But do you think he's going to win Iowa? Because right now, he'd probably be my pick to win it right now.
Yeah, see, I'm at this dilemma. Well, I posted a blog post the other day talking about the Republicans going over the 7 stages of grief about accepting Donald Trump as their nominee. And I was like, maybe I'm going through my own stages of grief about it. And I haven't passed that. I still haven't made it to the acceptance phase yet, but I just can't. I can't see him as a nominee. I can't picture him winning a state. I can't picture someone stupid enough to vote for this man. So, every indication says yes. The polls, they say yes. And I want to say yes. I personally, I probably think he does. Are
you in a position where your head says yes, your heart says no, kind of like that?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm everything is saying yes, but I'm just there's no way.
If it makes you feel any better, I went back and looked, and don't feel too bad because Pat Robertson, famous televangelist of 700 Club fame, he's in Iowa before.
Again, going back to looking at the base.
Looking at Iowa. So, I mean, look, the Iowa loser circle is truly, I mean, for people at home, we never had President Pat Robertson, and you know that because we're still alive. They're still in America. Right. president of, and we can still talk on cell phones. So, but I just think, I mean, there's still a lot of room to lose from winning, especially for the Republicans, from winning Iowa to the actual. But right now, so who's your pick for Iowa right now? Just for that one state.
Yeah,
I can sense anguish. You know, I can really sense your anguish about this question.
I'm gonna go with Chris Christie.
Well, okay. I mean, hey, he did eat the most pie at the state fair, and that.
Yeah,
exactly. They're like, I mean, you know what? He could win because the corn farmers are like, this guy's keeping us in business. I mean, if it wasn't for him, you know, our corn products, I'd be like, yeah, he's single-handedly employing the state of Iowa to feed him.
I don't know. Like I said, like everything's saying Trump, everything's pointing at Trump, and I just can't see Trump. Well, I can't see Trump winning evangelical voters.
You know, it's incredible that I agree with you, and that it seems like he would never, ever get those voters, but right now they're saying he's even getting them, which is incredible.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, so he's not, like, I'm looking at these poll numbers, and I'm like, okay, this is great, you know, if you're a Trump supporter, but how many of these people are actually going to show up to caucus?
Right.
So, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing about a caucus. You're not just going, punching a ticket and going home.
Well, we should also point out that the polls, there's always an upset in Iowa, you know.
Yeah,
exactly. Because like what you're saying, primary states are different, and I think primaries are a lot better. I don't really like caucuses that much, but with the caucus states, it is just about like who is the loneliest fucking senior citizen who's got nothing to do but spend 3 hours going to a town. I mean, it really is just about shut-ins and infirm and people who want to get out of the nursing home and people who, I mean, it really is like, primaries are that way anyway, but especially a caucus, somebody who works or somebody who goes to school or somebody young or what, they're not going to go to a caucus.
Right.
Anyway, so moving along, tell us if you would, how many states do you think each candidate's going to get? And then we'll work all the way up to who's going to be the nominee. Who's got the big enchilada? You know, how many, not necessarily specifically which states, but how many states do you think each candidate is going to get?
Did you say you were going to go first, or do you want me to go?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I can go first. Basically, I think some people say Trump he won't win a single state, or if he does, it won't be more than 5. I think you're going to see Trump. I think he'll win I think he'll win somewhere between 15 to 20 states. And I know that's bullish. That's more than most anybody on either side of the media wants to accept. Fox News doesn't want to accept it because they seem to hate him as much as MSNBC does.
Yeah.
But neither party wants to accept this right now. I'm going to be really bullish. I think he's going to get 15 to 20. And I think you're going to see Ted Cruz probably get maybe 8, probably not that many. To be honest, because I think Trump's going to come in and take a lot of the states Ted Cruz would normally get.
Right.
So I think you'll see, because people talk about the establishment being split 5 ways, well, so is the evangelical vote. And so is the traditional, like, very religious, very racist conservative party, because you've got Ted Cruz and you've got Ben Carson and you've got, you know, obviously Santorum Huckabee are still there for some reason. So you've got all these people splitting it, even Rand Paul. So you've got all these people and they're splitting all these different ways, and that lets Trump come in and scoop up the biggest part of the pie. So I think Trump is going to do better than people think. And I think that Ted Cruz is going to do worse than people think. And I think after 8, I think Ben Carson may win 1 state, and it'll just be because, like, what happened? You know, we'll just be like, it'll be so bizarre.
He finally wakes up. He's like, oh, hey, I am running, by the way.
If he drops out after Iowa, he won't win a single state. But if he stays in past Iowa, if he stays in past South Carolina, Ben Carson, he might win 1 state. And it'll probably be some random ass, like some you'd never, like Idaho or something, like something you'd never expect to happen.
Yeah.
It would just perfectly fit in with his bizarre candidacy. You know, like it'll just be, I think you're going to see John Kasich get maybe 5 states, maybe 4, somewhere, maybe 3 or 4. I think he'll win Iowa, maybe Pennsylvania, maybe. And maybe another one, so he might win somewhere between 2 to 4 states.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see Rand Paul probably get a couple, maybe 2 or 3. And I think what's really going to surprise people, the biggest surprise is going to be that Jeb Bush doesn't get a single state. And I think that's really going to shock people, but I don't think he'll get a single state. And I think he'll have to drop out eventually. And then with the rest of the states, they'll go to Rubio. And overall, today, I would have to say he'll probably be the nominee. But I've been saying that for a few months, and Donald Trump's still at the top of the polls, you know. So it's like, I mean, I've been thinking almost a year that people would get tired of Trump, and they haven't. And I guess part of it is that just like Republicans can't they can't reconcile them to the fate of him being the nominee. I can't quite let myself dream that much. I would love for him to be the nominee, but at the same time, I can't let myself dream that much, and I still think that they're going to wake up at the last minute and be smart enough to put a Rubio Kasich ticket out there. So I guess I'd have to say, I think Rubio win the overall nomination, and I think he'll probably pick John Kasich as his vice presidential running mate. But you go ahead. You tell us what you think.
Again, I'm one of those that I just can't look at Donald Trump and take him. I can't take him seriously. I just can't. I don't know what it is. I said before on here, I'm one of those that I don't think he's going to win a state. The closer we get to Iowa, the more I'm just saying he may.
Very far ahead in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
It would be hard to see him losing New Hampshire.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like he's blowing everybody out in New Hampshire, and that's something that I was shocked to see when I saw that, because I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But so
I think you're onto something with obviously your blog is blue in Alabama, and if I think that the whole country is feeling a little blue at this prospect.
Yeah.
You really, and I'm thrilled with this prospect, but I think most people are like kind of.
Yeah.
I really believe he'll guarantee Hillary's wins.
Yeah.
I can't see people,
absolutely.
but I think people are so depressed. So if you had to place like who'll win each state or whatever, what would you do?
So, like I said, I think I'll go Christie with Iowa. I don't think he'll win maybe 2 states. I'll say 2 states. I think after the Big Four, by the time we get to Super Tuesday, I think you're going to come down to Bush is probably still going to be in the race, Cruz, Trump, Rubio, Huckabee maybe. I think it's really going to come down to those 4 to 5 men, and the vote's going to be pretty split. I think realistically, like just putting all my hopefulness aside, well, I think Trump could win. I guess I'm not as bullish as you. I could see him winning maybe 8 states. I think the race is going to come down to Rubio and Cruz. And I think you're going to see, depending on what happens in Iowa, what happens in South Carolina, because, like you said, Trump's got a huge lead in New Hampshire. I think that one, again, barring some colossal Trump mistake, I think he's got that locked up. I think it's going to come down to Cruz and Rubio fighting it out, which is so ironic. 2 Cuban Americans fighting for the nomination of the Republican Party.
It is pretty funny. Most of the Republican field, as we talked about before, even Santorum, his dad was Italian, and it was like,
exactly.
and there's like a first generation Italian immigrants. So it's kind of funny that the anti-immigrant party has more immigrants in it than people.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah.
No, I was going to say, I think I'm going to say Bush wins 2 states. I'm going to give him 2. I think the rest are going to fall into Cruz and Rubio. I think it's going to be talk about a horse race. I think it's going to be a horse race between Cruz and Rubio. I think you're going to see the entire GOP establishment jump behind Rubio because, we've already seen Orrin Hatch was the senator I brought up in the last podcast. Somebody that was talking about how if the Cruz won the nomination, the GOP would lose. It was Orrin Hatch that was making that statement. And it was several other senators. I finally found an article on it, and it was several Republican senators that were saying that they basically felt like Cruz was calling them a bunch of sellouts and not corporate, but a bunch of sellouts to lobbyists in D.C. and he was basically
and Ted Cruz, he wouldn't know anything about that. Making money from Goldman Sachs and oil companies. Give me a fucking break. Really.
But they were saying like, the fact that he's party under the bus, the government shut down.
What was funny was Ted Cruz, he said, I'm the outsider and Donald Trump's the insider. So somehow a sitting senator is telling somebody with no government experience, never been to Washington, D.C., hardly, never lived there, you're the insider. I'm like, come on. So, but if you had to put money on the ticket, who do you think, the whole enchilada, the whole nominee, and then their vice presidential, who would you go with?
Whole enchilada, I would say, I'm kind of with you. I think Rubio, I can't see anybody other than Kasich. I think depending on, if it's somebody like, if Donald Trump does somehow win the nomination, I don't think he would go with Kasich. I think he would probably go with somebody somebody like Susanna Martinez, somebody that,
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that's going to kind of get in line with his stances on things like immigration.
This is why Trump is such an exciting nominee, or to me and to the Democrats, is because him and Kasich, they have such bad blood that he's really the only person. I think anybody would pick Kasich, whether it be Jeb Bush or Rubio, whoever would pick him as the VP. And in any other instance, you'd see probably, like even if Rubio doesn't get it, you'd see him as VP probably. So you'd see Rubio and Kasich on any ticket but Trump, because Trump really doesn't have, him and Kasich don't seem to like each other at all.
No, not at all.
And I don't think Trump would pick him, which would mean Ohio goes back into play. And that would mean that, because Kasich's so dangerous, because he's got Ohio, which is neat for, I think the whole race is going to come down to what I keep calling move: Missouri, Ohio, Virginia. And I think Hillary's going to win at least 2 of those states, and it'd be good to do a clean sweep. Kasich's not being beat, that puts Ohio back into play, and he's technically born in Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh's needed for the Democrats to keep Pennsylvania blue. If Pittsburgh falls because of Kasich support or whatever, Pennsylvania goes from blue to red. That's huge. And if you have a Rubio ticket, that's a nightmare ticket, because you could technically see Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, all 3 of them fall and go red. And then that's Hillary would pretty much have to carry every single state that Obama did, plus flip Missouri and maybe North Carolina. I mean, it's tough. That's a ticket that's very tough. And if you put Rubio Kasich's ticket up against Hillary and hopefully probably somebody from Virginia, because she'll really need Virginia at that point. Maybe Mark Warner as a senator from Virginia, maybe even Al Franken from Minnesota, only because he's Middle American, kind of pleasant. He might help her with those Middle American states. I hate to say it, but it looks tough for Hillary at that point. I'd hate to say it. And then, of course, if it's that ticket versus Bernie, I don't know. I don't know, because that's the other side of the equation. Now we got to go back and kind of say, right now, Bernie and Hillary, it's a horse race. In Iowa, they go back and forth. Who do you think between those 2 wins Iowa, and how many states would you predict that they would get between them?
I think Hillary wins Iowa, and I think she's going to win the nomination fairly easily. We want to call it a horse race, but I just can't see Sanders putting up early states he's going to contend in, but across the board, I just can't see him staying in the race and staying with his numbers like they are now, with Hillary consistently for the entirety of the race. I think Hillary's going to take a big early lead. She's going to have all the momentum, and come Super Tuesday, she's just going to almost wrap up the nomination. I'm probably in the minority there. But
what's interesting is there's really 2 sides of this, which is number one, people are being too bullish on Bernie by saying all this stuff, because if you look at a lot of the early states, except for New Hampshire, Hillary wins. So there's a side that's saying they're giving Bernie too much credit, and then there's the other side saying, but when the race started, Hillary had a huge lead. And every single week it shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. But what's interesting is that the closest Bernie ever was to her in the polls, it was right before this debate they had last Sunday, so a week and a half ago. That was the closest he ever was. But after that debate, she's kind of widened her lead since then. And I think people took a really big look at Bernie and said no. That they looked, because they took a real look at him, and they watched that debate, and they took a real look at him. And most of the Democratic his campaign had been complaining because all the Democratic debates, they were all on Saturday nights on the Fusion Network or some shit, like the TV Guide channel, whatever, ABC Family. So they have these debates on these obscure networks at weird times. He said that was hurting him. Actually, the NBC debate that they had was high rated, and people watched it, and it was only after they watched that they started to turn back to Hillary a little bit. So he might, I think if during the debates, it's exhausting to watch him. The hand movements, the yelling. By the second half of the debate, he's hoarse, So he's about to collapse. You feel like they're just feeding him Snickers just constantly during the commercial breaks or whatever. So I think there's 2 sides. Either we're being too bullish on Hillary, and I think that for me, if I had to predict it, I think Bernie wins maybe 8 or 9 states, maybe. Hillary wins the rest. I think O'Malley, after no later than South Carolina, he goes and manages an Applebee's or something. He goes and finds something else to do with his time. He goes and gets a job at a Ruby Tuesdays or whatever. So I don't think he wins a single state, and I think he drops out no later than South Carolina.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
I think Bernie probably wins some New England states. I think he stays in there longer than he should. I don't think he quits. even when it's over. And I think he probably picks up maybe 8 or 9, maybe.
Yeah.
Whether he gets the rest. So that's what I'm hoping for. It's hard to tell, really, because in every single poll, Hillary's ahead in every state but New Hampshire. But yet the media keeps presenting this horse race aspect. They keep going for this idea that Hillary's in trouble or she's doomed or the race is going to go to Bernie. And we have to broaden this out to really what is the media. Do they get off on this horse race aspect? Or are they sometimes like I think that they don't cover the issues that well. They don't cover what the candidates say and they don't go that in depth on their ideas. But they sure seem to get really lathered up about the horse race.
Yeah, and I think part of that is for ratings. I think Americans are less interested in issues and more interested in, there's a competition. Like, we got to keep it, make sure we got something going on. It's got to be close. I mean, who's gonna win The Bachelor? Who's gonna be the last person on American Idol? Who's going to be the next president of the United States? Like, we got to.
Yeah, it all feels. You're right. It all feels like it goes into the same blender, and it all feels like at the same time we have the presidential race, there's the race to win the Super Bowl. So right now going on, there's the Super Bowl, there's the Oscar race. The month of February, it begins first day of the month. It begins with the Iowa. And then it ends with the Oscar winners. In between there, they have the Super Bowl. And I mean, I think covered in this horse race aspect of being like this competition, and we get so wrapped up in these competitions. But with football, that's very straightforward. You can follow what teams you like and what teams should win. But with politics, there's a real reluctance with the media to go beneath the surface and really get into these issues.
Right. And again, it goes back to what we talked about in the last podcast with people, especially younger voters. They're not really interested in learning. You can sit and talk about economic policy all you want to, but you're not going to get any viewers from that. And I think that's why, if you look at Donald Trump's campaign, I mean, the guy's probably the most well-versed in economics of all the Republican candidates, but you never see him talk about it because he knows that'll turn voters off because falling asleep.
Right, and what's funny is that what's really weird about Donald is that and look, I'm not even gonna fucking attempt to defend the guy because I didn't like him before he started running for president.
Me either.
Even back as Celebrity Apprentice, it was like this guy's insufferable. He's a jackass. But it was like, I mean, he really is a professional jackass. But I don't even think he's as conservative as a lot of the other candidates. But I think that what it is that his two most conservative positions, immigration and Islam, were like, man, those are just his most popular. So what's weird is that the two things he's the most wrong about, especially immigration, is his most popular position. And then when it comes to things that we might like him on, such as some of his social issues, I don't think he's really socially conservative, to be honest. I don't like him speaking of gay marriage and abortion, things like that. And I don't think that he's the most well-versed in the economy, but over poll after poll after poll, Republicans are not even turning to him for the economy. They're turning to him for immigration, something he knows nothing about. I mean, almost nothing about. He knows a lot about the economy and stuff we might like him on. Like, I like that he socks it to the Bushes and he criticizes the Iraq War. His foreign policy is not awful. He's the only candidate on the Republican stage that said that we shouldn't be competing with Russia when it comes to Syria. I mean, like, he's the only one that said he wouldn't rip up the contract with Iran. So his foreign policy and his things and his social issues, they're not awful, but those are his least popular positions with the Republican voters that have been polled. Yeah, it's just coming to the horse race. That's what's so dangerous with the media only treating this as a horse race, and people have control over this. They actually can affect this with the Super Bowl and with the Oscars. You don't have any effect over how Tom Brady plays or whatever. You don't have any effect over what teams do at the Super Bowl. So with politics, people affect this. So if they're watching the poll numbers and they think, well, Ted Cruz, he's going to win, so I'm going to vote for him. That's what makes it so dangerous, I think, and that's what kind of creates a momentum to where people, they're not even necessarily voting for the candidate they like, they're voting for who they think the winner's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's so dangerous about not really only focusing on the horse race, because like we elect these people, so we have control over this, and people are surrendering it for whatever reason and being like, well, I mean, Donald, he's going to win anyway, so I'm just going to vote for him. And kind of a danger there that the media, and I'm kind of a hypocrite because because, I mean, I knew when we were going to talk about who's going to win and who's going to get each state and all that stuff, I got excited about it. So, like I got excited to predict it. And before, when we might have been talking about economics or deeper issues or whatever with Rubionomics, I mean, it was I wasn't as excited to talk about it. So I don't blame the media necessarily, but I have to blame them, because if people are not going to get educated on these issues from them, they're not going to come from anywhere. And they're really not even trying.
But at the same time, at least we do talk about the issues. Of course, right then we talk about the issues. Whereas some media is like, oh, no, let's just look at the race.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, and plus the American presidential race, I mean, it goes on for 2 years.
Yeah.
So, like, they're not just talking about Trump this year. They talked about him most of last year. And so the last 6 months of the year, did Congress get a single bill passed? I really don't know, because every single day was the Donald Trump show. So it was all about the presidential race that was a year and a half away, and nothing about prison reform, climate crisis. I mean, there were bills that they were trying to pass that barely covered the bills, that barely covered Congress, and they went right to the presidential race and covered that. And there were elections that happened last year. There were statewide elections. There was governor's races, and the media barely said a word about it. And I think this is sometimes why liberals, they do really well in the presidential race. And I mean, if you're going to run as a Democrat, this year's the year to do it. But there are elections that happen in the midterms and even in off years, like last year, and Democrats routinely do very poorly in those, because a lot of times they don't even know there's elections going on.
Right.
Anyway, though, I think if we had to place our final bets for Iowa, you're saying Christie, I'm saying probably Trump, and I think we're both agreeing on Hillary overall for the nominations. Wouldn't surprise either of us. If Hillary got it, wouldn't surprise either of us. If Rubio got it, we'll keep you posted more on this.
Yes.
So what's your web address?
blueinalabama.wordpress.com.
Okay, and you can find me on Alabama Liberals. So join us again next time, and we'll finally know who will win Iowa. The end.